So here we are now, week 6, day 2, and we've moved on to Exodus 10 through 13. Here we pick up the story as we continue to see the signs that God is performing in the midst of Egypt. God is demonstrating his power. One of the things that I don't think we often realize is that in the hundreds of years that the Hebrews were now in captivity in Egypt, that while they may have remembered the God of their ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, and his other sons, but they haven't had a formal way of worshiping that God. And God, by all intents and purposes, sounds a little bit like he's been silent in that period of time. And so they have grown up generation after generation, living within the great culture and empire of Egypt at that time, and would probably have, and most likely were exposed greatly to the gods and goddesses of the Egyptian religious pantheon, far more than they were to the God of what we now call the God of Israel. Their own God. So these signs and wonders, as much as they were for Pharaoh and for the leaders of Egypt to soften their hearts, so to speak, and to allow the Hebrews to be freed, to escape ultimately the slavery that they endured under Egypt, these signs and wonders were also for the Hebrew people, because each of the signs was a correlation or a contrast, if you will, an argument against one of the Egyptian gods. For example, the day when the sun goes dark was in direct contrast to the Egyptian god Ra, the god of the sun. How was it that the God of the universe was more powerful than the sun god, who was the primary of the Egyptian gods? Even the frogs, there was a frog-headed goddess, and she was in charge of fertility. And all these frogs, they overrun the place. And so God is saying, I have more control and power than this God does when it comes to that. So each of those signs and wonders was in direct challenge to the Egyptian pantheon. And so even more than just for Pharaoh and the leaders and the Egyptian people, this was also a starting point for the relationship that the Israelites will now have with the one true God of the universe. When you think back to Egypt, you remember this God. Well, didn't I show you that I am more powerful than that Egyptian God? Of all the things that are in our lives, the things that we count on in order to make life good. And for some people, that's money. For some people, that's relationships. For some people, that's fame. Isn't it true, first and foremost, that we can witness in our own lives and the lives of those around us that over and over again, God can say, I am the God of the universe, and I am more powerful than money. I am more powerful than relationships. I'm more powerful than fame. I'm more powerful than anything that you could try and choose to put above me. What is it that we've been trying to put above God in our own lives? And do we recognize that it is indeed God who is more powerful, God who is more worthy of worship and praise, and the God who deems and desires a relationship with you and with me?